Hey everybody, I'm back again, and this week I'm going to be making a list of, in my opinion, 10 of history's most formidable militaries. These guys hardly need any introduction. They conquered Poland, crushed France, and battered Britain before they advanced hundreds of miles into the heart of the Soviet Union. They numbered in the millions and left millions of dead in their wake. The Battle of Thermopylae is a bit overplayed, I'll grant you that. It wasn't 300 Spartans, it was about 12,000 Greek soldiers who were led by a vanguard of 300 Spartans versus the full force of the Persian Empire. That doesn't downplay the fact that the Spartans were the greatest military force per man of their time. They trained from the age of 7 to be masters of the sword and the spear and the shield, and they were not guys you wanted to mess with. Period. While most Americans only associate the British Redcoats with the American Revolutionary War, they were in evidence throughout the history of the British Empire, up to and including the Crimean War in the late 19th century. The Redcoats proved instrumental in Napoleon's downfall at the Battle of Waterloo, and it also conquered all of the British Empire, which was a huge portion of the world's landmass. At first glance, this one doesn't look like it belongs on the list. After all, whereas the Aztecs only had stone and wooden weapons, Cortez and his men had guns, germs, and steel on their side, not to mention horses and dogs. But the thing that sets this one up on the list is the numbers. There were hundreds of thousands of Aztec soldiers up against Cortez and his men, and they only had a few hundred. What set the Soviet Union's Red Army apart from other armies of the time was their blind loyalty to the state and to the dictator. Soviet soldiers would die before they surrendered, and as a result, they sustained unimaginably heavy losses in the Second World War, but they also crushed Nazi Germany. The Russians maintained their unimaginably powerful military up to the 1990s, when the Soviet Union finally fell, and Russia remains a force to be reckoned with in today's world. If you look into history, America's army has proved superior to forces that should have been superior to it. The Continental Army beat the British Redcoats, who were the greatest fighting force at the time. The Union Army beat the Confederate Army, and the Union Army had an insurmountable challenge in front of them: get the people who are fighting on their own turf to surrender. Then America beat the logistically and technologically superior forces of the Empire of Japan almost single-handedly. We are the world's greatest military power today, and that's a result of this legacy. The Roman Empire might not have been one of the world's biggest, but its military was one of history's best. The Roman legions conquered lands that are now in more than 45 countries today. A combination of superior weaponry, strict discipline, and advanced engineering allowed them to conquer such brutally powerful people as the Celts and the Carthaginians. The Macedonians conquered all of Greece, almost all of the Persian Empire, and parts of India, and they did most of that conquering during the 33-year life of Alexander the Great. If the Macedonians had been able to hold on to that empire, the world as we know it today would be a very different place. Napoleon's Grande Armée, which literally means big army, was fittingly named. The Grande Armée conquered most of Europe before a series of tactical blunders by their ingenious commander, and basically all of Europe uniting against them, eventually turned the tables and defeated the French Empire. Possibly the single most efficient fighting force in history, the Mongols conquered the single largest contiguous land empire in all of human history, from the back of the horse. They made it from the Pacific Ocean to the Ukraine, and they ruled it all with an iron fist. Even though after the death of their leader, Genghis Khan, who saw most of this conquest, the Mongols remained in power, with Genghis Khan's descendants founding the Yuan dynasty of China. The Mongols would remain a major influence, and their descendants would play a part in the foundation of many empires, some of which lasted up to the 20th century.